Hi again, everyone. So we're making great progress on day 4 of WFS Live. We've got 5 more panels to come. As I mentioned before, I mean, remember, this is a virtual conference. It's not just the content you're seeing, which is brilliant, and we've got some incredible insights that our speakers have given us and some great conversations driven by our moderators. But do also check out the expo area. There are some fantastic exhibitors there who'd really love you to just spend some time engaging with them. So please do so. Just check out this World Football Summit platform and you'll be able to find them. Now, we've talked about being creative for the last couple of sessions. Let's focus on being collaborative, and in a collaboration, a real partnership between two entities. One of them you should absolutely know, arguably one of the most famous football clubs in the world. In Real Madrid, and the other is a company called Horizm. Now, if you're not aware of their work, they're a company who leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning to track, value, monetize, and sell digital inventory across sports and entertainment. And of course, we've seen this shift from linear towards digital non-live consumption. That's really been accelerating. So digital assets really do represent one of the most relevant and considerable opportunities for clubs, for leagues, for federations, even for players, in fact. If you want to really diversify those revenue streams, it's an area you should be looking into. And they also, I suppose, especially given what we've gone through in the last year, mitigate that dependency on live events. And as far as Horizm are concerned, well, they've got plenty of clients, governing bodies in volleyball, in hockey, also the Aussie Open tennis, numerous elite level football clubs, but really the most eye-catching partnership of all is that with Real Madrid. So let's find out why it's been such a success. This session is in partnership with Horizm, and here are your speakers. The CEO of Olocip and former footballer Esteban Granero, the CEO of Horizm, Pedro Mestriner, and Chief Transformation Officer at Real Madrid, Mike Sutherland. And to moderate this session, Senior Manager in PwC's European Sports Business Advisory, Clive Reeves. Clive, great to have you with us. It should be really interesting to learn about Horizm in the next 40 minutes or so. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, David, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session. So today we're going to be talking about setting new standards in AI and digital innovation. So I'm going to try and moderate the session. We've got 3 great speakers, lots of interesting topics to get through. Maybe before we kick off, if I give each of you 1 minute, just give us a quick background into the type of things you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So Esteban, if I maybe kick off with yourself.
Can you go again for a question? Sorry, please.
A quick introduction to your work in this space. What are you working on right now?
Thank you. We are working on transporting analysis of players into the future, not giving only past statistics of players, but answering what clubs are questioning themselves when they are trying to sign a player. That is, what will be the performance of this player? And this is mainly what we are focusing right now.
Okay, perfect. And Pedro, maybe a quick introduction on your side.
Yeah, we're focused very strongly on monetization. I think David started the introduction on that. We are strongly focused on monetization of digital assets.
Okay, and Michael, on your side?
Well, obviously, Real Madrid, one of the most recognized football clubs, and in particular with transformation, it's something that we see as a continuous journey. So I'm really looking at ways that we can continue to provide leadership in the industry over the long-term view. So as we look at all different aspects of the business, digital transformation, business transformation, and otherwise.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone, and maybe if I just try and set the scene for what we're going to talk about today. So over the last few years, we've seen a huge increase in the adoption of new technologies across all areas of the sports business landscape, on field and off field. I think we've seen through the current pandemic, the industry has been really rocked by the COVID situation, and digital has been that place where people have gone to for engaging with their audiences, creating content. And we've really seen, I think, an acceleration in the digital innovation space in the last few months in particular, but certainly building on the trends that were probably there in the background anyway. I think just to highlight a point in our recent sports survey, we had 78% of our respondents globally said they will increase their funding and their efforts to accelerate digital transformation. So I think it just highlights the importance of the topic and the theme of today's discussion. And I think in what we want to cover in the next 35 minutes is around what is the future of the industry, what are the new standards that we think are going to be set, both on the field and off the field, and maybe just touch on a little bit around what stage of digital transformation do we see football is at, and different clubs and different levels of their maturity. So that's what we'd like to try and cover in the next few minutes. But maybe just to kick off, if I go around the panel and say, what do you think has developed most in the last 12 months, and how do you see AI and digital innovation really changing the way clubs think about, and do business? So maybe if I kick off, Pedro, with yourself, like, how do you see things have developed, and how do you see things moving forward in the future?
Good, thanks for that, Clive. For us, the first thing we saw the big difference, and the biggest transformation was the mindset. I think the trend, as you were mentioning, is already happening in the last year or so. That the industry itself was doing a good job on growing audience, creating some data sets. But now especially in the last 6 months, what happened is the mindset, which is the core for innovation. When the industry, of course, is doing, let's say, especially on monetization, on sponsorship and partnerships, are pretty much working the same in the last 20, 30 years, with a few improvements. So, of course, that accumulation of knowledge generated good answers for the problems. But the same problems, the problems we already knew. What happened now in the last 6 months, literally, is that we need to answer different problems. And for that, we apply, in our Horizm as a company, basically, but also, on probably with Olocip as well, with Esteban and Real Madrid, we apply the creativity to ask new questions, so we can also figure out, basically having new answers for that, and that new discoveries, it's the real innovation. So that mindset plus the implementation of that discovery, it's what is really happening right now, faster than even we expected.
Great. And Mike, from your side, what have you seen really the big developments in the recent months, and how do you see the digital innovation really changing the way football clubs do business? If they're thinking more from an industry perspective at this stage.
Well, I mean, in terms of digital itself, digital is a bit of a loaded term. I mean, it means many different things to different people. I mean, we can be talking about digital content, digital business models, digitalization of processes and systems. And I think, just to echo Pedro, the one thing that is clear is that having a digital mindset throughout every aspect of the business is critical. These past 12 months with this ongoing pandemic, if nothing else, it's put the spotlight on this necessity for this way of thinking. And so, I mean, if we're talking about digital media, for example, these past 12 months have put a lot more pressure on extracting the most value from our digital content and channels compared to traditional media assets. So, traditional media is not going away. Fans are going to be coming back to the stadiums. Matches are going to return to normal. But the lessons that we've learned during this period are going to stay with us, and it's going to open up new opportunities moving forward. So, digital media has more flexibility in some ways. So it's not just about the number of eyeballs, it's about engagement. And what engagement's really about is understanding better who your audience is. So being able to intelligently segment your audience based on interest, being able to serve them content that they really want to see. And that level of personalization is not possible with traditional media channels. And so it opens up new possibilities for clubs and sponsors, as Pedro kind of mentioned. And we've seen over the last 12 months, I believe, an increase in the sort of the creativity around content during this pandemic. And I think we're likely to see that continue over the next 12 months and beyond, as clubs apply the learnings that we've had over these last 12 months, and new tools are put in place to allow clubs to really exploit the greater capabilities and the flexibility that we have with digital media and digital channels.
Yeah, great. Esteban, on your side, so what are you seeing from a digital innovation perspective that's affecting the on-field side of things? How do you see that progressing in recent years and going forward?
Thank you. Well, what I think it has changed the most in the last months or year has been the access to data. And this is something also artificial intelligence have something to say with computer vision, and also to the ability that has artificial intelligence to create data and to clean data. So now everybody in the football industry has access to data, and this is this big data fever where we are all. But I think in the next couple of years, everybody will focus on how to treat this data in order to create knowledge, in order to make these predictions that will make you be able to reduce uncertainty in order to take better decisions everywhere in a football club. I'm sure Real Madrid is standard for this kind of technologies, and of course Horizm is leader company in his sector because of this ability to treat data. And for us, it's the same. In order to give insights on information about player performance, we know that the most important thing is not only having the data, but what we do with the data before giving to the client.
Interesting. So we've just heard there already. There's a shift in the mindset of the practitioners and the people within sports organizations. We've talked about creativity, and we're in a data world now, and in the future, that's probably going to become even more important. But what about new technologies? What do you see coming in, say, the next few years, 1 to 3 years? What new technology do you think may come in place that may help redefine the sports business area? Are there any types of technologies you think are going to come in and continue to shift the way people work? Maybe, Mike, if I come to you first from your background in Silicon Valley, what are you seeing that may come in and impact our sports world?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's I wouldn't say just necessarily technologies. I think it's important to really not necessarily look at technology as being the key driver, but also looking at behaviors as a key driver in the industry. So, looking first at how fans want to consume content, how they want to shop, the types of products they want to buy, looking at how that behavior is shifting is kind of a leading indicator to the types of technologies that are coming along as well. But it can happen in both ways. So I mean, if I had to sort of call out a few of the things that I think are worth paying attention to, I mean, some of these sound like buzzwords, but part of the reason that they're buzzwords is because they will ultimately end up having a big impact. So things like 5G, but when we say about 5G, why is 5G going to have an impact? Because 5G is going to bring about an entire new world of bandwidth, which is going to bring with it a greater capability to provide richer content and more and more data coming to your personal devices. And so consumer expectations are going to then change for what they expect. So I mean, the rollout of 5G in a longer term sort of mindset is going to change how fans expect us to interact with them. And we're going to need to think about the types of services and content that we can deliver, having 10x the bandwidth, this ultra low latency, and that is going to affect the experience in the stadium. It's going to affect the way that we interact with fans on their mobile handsets or other mobile devices that will emerge as a result of this. So I think that's a key area to look out for. Obviously, one of the topics today that we're talking about, AI, we're just at the infancy of it. Today AI has become a term that sort of covers everything from basic automation all the way through to deep neural nets. Probably there's nothing that really truly resembles artificial intelligence, but it's here and it's real and it's not a buzzword, and it's having an impact in business every day, and that's only going to continue as the technologies become more advanced, as we get bigger and bigger data sets that we can work with, and that's really is going to have a big impact on the day-to-day running of business. We see it already across almost every aspect of the business. It really impacts everything from on the pitch performance, match time training, to the way that we can provide personalization, hyper-personalization through retail, e-commerce, etc. I mean, the list is really pretty endless where machine learning technologies are going to impact the business or are already impacting the business. And I don't want to take up all the time, but I mean, I could kind of go on and on. There's a number of big ones that are going to have an impact. I think things like real-time data, particularly with 5G, the use of real-time for sports analytics, but also for the type of experience that we can offer to fan, being able to process big amounts of data in real time and then apply those machine learning and AI algorithms is going to radically change the way that we can understand both our businesses, but also things like sports performance. And so I don't know, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to take up all the time, but you've got me on a topic that I'm passionate about. So I'll stop before I run off with all the time.
No, that's great. And Pedro, anything from your side you would add in terms of new technologies? And maybe if I extend the question a bit further and say, what are some of the potential obstacles or barriers for adoption of new technologies within the sports industry?
I mean, our focus is, of course, within AI is purely machine learning. So I don't want to get into details, but just to clarify that machine learning is subset of AI, as Mike was saying. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with that. But in our case, is purely focused on reading a large amount of data and basically teaching the machine for that, for a specific output. In the case, we're going to continue to see that when I studied AI back in the university, like 20 something years ago, AI was kind of, we need to have the machine work like the human brain, which it was kind of not cool. We think that would happen, but now in the last 5 years, what happened is AI really are focused on some categories. One is, like Michael said, it's reading, especially with 5G, for example, whole chunks of data and provide real time. So in our case at Horizm, precisely, we are the first solution, real-time solution that can leverage, and help sports organization to better track and value commercial inventory. So this is with the technology provide a real-time data, which was totally opposite that was happening a few years back in time, that you need 2-3 months to have a result of whatever campaign you're doing. These allow this kind of technologies. I think Mike said we are just in the beginning. So for us, we're just learning as well through the process continuously.
Great, thank you. And Esteban, from your perspective, as you see anything to add on the new technologies and any points around barriers that need to be overcome, particularly on the football side of the business, where you operate mostly?
Yes, for me the key factors having impact right now in the new technologies implantation in football is of course nowadays the pandemic, and this is something we can talk about, how uncertainty is so important in order to make decisions. Artificial intelligence, as Mike said, has this ability to reduce uncertainty, and in these moments of huge uncertainty, of course, is a technology that must be very important. And the other factor that will define how technologies are implanted into sports, into football, is how these technologies are able to add competitivity to the clubs. And this is the final point. We make technology in order to make better clubs, better results, economic result, performance result. And this natural selection of the clubs that will increase his victories and increase his revenue is what will make the technology stay, and no technology to go away from football.
That's great. So let's move on. So one of the parts of the title we have for the session is about setting new standards. So I was really keen to ask you different questions here around the types of new standards we think we're going to set, and maybe if I just reference two of the biggest opportunities that were reported in our sports survey was around enhancing the digital media experience for fans, and then the monetization of digital assets. So clearly, sports leaders are thinking around digital and the monetization of digital in particular. So I was keen to, maybe if I start with you, Michael, around Real Madrid. So how are you trying to set new standards within the digital innovation transformation area? And how are you trying to identify and implement the right technologies that help you, drive your business forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's, in terms of, let's just tackle the part about how to choose the right technologies. So, I mean, the first thing is that the simple way of answering that is really to say that we don't choose the technology. We look for the need and we try and address the need. So whether that's a customer need or a business need, the most critical piece is really to understand deeply what the need is. And in some cases, technology can be part of the solution, or it can be the entire solution. But the key for us is to really start with identifying what that business need is. And so, you know, from my perspective, you know, coming from sort of a technology and innovation background and sort of, you know, going through sort of Silicon Valley, developing new products, you know, I tend to look at it through that sort of product lens about balancing, you know, the business, customer, and technology needs as sort of three equal pillars. And so I would tend to look at kind of the macro technology trends that are happening in the broader market as a point to start, and then kind of look at where those are intersecting with, you know, the ability to create new customer value, new business models, new value delivery models. But you know, when we want to co-develop a solution, I mean, one of the things that I think, you know, given that we're here with Horizm is just sort of looking at like what that model is for innovation. And I mean, I think that, you know, in this case, you know, one of the things we're always looking at is, you know, with the technology evolving at such a rapid pace, we need to find ways to innovate faster. And so in this case, what we looked at was, you know, a model where we actually incubated this solution with Horizm inside the business and kind of co-innovated with them. And so as a result, you know, Horizm was able to bring a solution to market faster, and it's one that provides real business value because it was achieved, you know, in this co-collaboration environment with rapid iteration and, you know, direct feedback from our internal business stakeholders. And so I think, you know, looking at these new or these models of co-innovation and open innovation and other innovation models are really critical for us to help, you know, not just develop our business and where we want to go with our business, but also it's, you know, in this sense, it's really a way of helping to shift the industry forward as well, because we get a solution that works for us, and Horizm's able to deliver a solution to market that already has that product market fit. And so I'm really interested in looking at more of these sorts of co-innovation models and open innovation models for helping to really speed up that development of new technology and find solutions that bring real value.
Yeah, no, definitely seeing more of those, yeah, co-creative models across sport. I think that's a great point. Maybe Pedro, if I come to you then and think about how football clubs in particular can unlock more value from their digital assets, and yeah, maybe talk us through how you see this sort of new area emerging, if you like, and how you're trying to set new standards to really drive the industry forward from that monetization of a digital asset.
I think, well, as Mike was saying, you know, our approach is more focused on different questions, you know. So for that, the way we are driving this monetization is making a totally different question for the point we're doing. How we were pricing our digital inventory in the last years, you know, how can we be pricing out to fit to the guys, to the companies, basically, who are paying that, you know. So that point is the one we are addressing, you know. The one is that we are, instead of doing a theoretical mid exposure, for example, we are going to a more traditional marketing campaign. So we are focused on what on the other side, you know, let's say the brands are used to, you know. And just as I think we're talking about this before we started, you know, the industry right now in general, and also advertising, for example, digital advertising probably is around globally 60%, 65% of the total advertising. It's already shifted to digital, no? Sponsorship in general is even less than 10%. So this gap is the one we're trying to fill now. And that's why when Mike said, when we came with the solution to Real Madrid, basically, look, this is what we have. Their position, their ability to push us as well, because of their standards, their requirements, the team, but also the complexity of the, you know, the way the organization is big enough to push us to deliver the best product, you know. So the way to address this problem is as we're mentioning, not only technology, not only having the right standard to that, is to answer a different question. And the question is coming from the sponsor is, how can I price my, your digital assets properly, and not only the traditional way they were doing the last 20, 30 years. That's our approach.
Okay, great. And Esteban, I'll come to you on the sort of player performance side. So in terms of setting new standards in this part of the industry, how are you using the AI to provide new insights into player performance, and how do you see that sort of driving up the standards in that part of the sector?
Yes, as Pedro said, is key to find what is the club demanding and drive the technology into this direction. In terms of performance, what performance of player, for example, scouting services, what clubs are looking for is reducing uncertainty about the signing. So they need to know not only what they have done in the past, as I said, but what they will do in the new context. So this contextualization only can be brought by very deep artificial intelligence, machine learning models, and this is the only thing that answers the questions clubs are doing to themselves related to a player. If they want to, for example, if they want to compare two players, and these two players has performed in different contexts, for example, imagine Real Madrid Castilla thinking about promoting one fullback instead of signing a fullback from first division in Germany, Bundesliga. So they cannot compare these two performance because they have performed this in two different contexts. So they need to transport the performance into a new context through artificial intelligence in order to know what will be this performance in the future in Real Madrid next year if they play for Zidane team with a different context, different league, and this contextualization allows the club to compare in an honest way. So this is only one example how we need to identify what clubs are really asking to themselves, and this is contextualization is only an example, but of course can be only be driven by artificial intelligence models.
No, that's great. But we think about, again, looking to our sort of third section of discussion around digital transformation within football, and we've developed this simple kind of maturity framework where we look at football clubs and think of what stage of that journey are they on, and just to try and help them understand where they are and help them sort of navigate the digital transformation journey. So Pedro, if I come to you first on this one, interested in your viewpoint on what you're seeing from the different clubs and entities you're working with, on where they are in terms of their maturity, and then maybe just talk us through how you're helping them move from, let's say, stage 1 to stage 2 of that journey, and the way you're trying to help them understand the benefits of that digital transformation process.
Yeah, as you mentioned, for our, we have now a big client base and partner base, that covers around, 15 countries in more than 60 sports. So we'll be able now to identify which level of maturity they are on this journey, let's say, of transformation. And of course, our solution helps the whole process, because we cover from the pre-sales to itself, the sale itself, the final point of that, and identifying the property, whatever it's a football club or any federation, asking themselves and identify where am I here, can fit a little bit better for this answer. So basically our solution can help not only track, so first identify which kind of content, which kind of content you're generating to which audience. The second is they need to answer to ask themselves a little bit where I want to go, as I think Esteban was saying, now in the next year or two in terms of monetization. Is this part of my strategy as leadership is supporting me on this process, or I'm just including digital as a giveaway, including the whole other packs, on the other assets. I think this level of maturity when you fit is where solutions, and including Horizm, but not only us, can be included onto this journey, for each of those properties, but all rely basically on them again asking the question where we want to go in the next year. Do we want to stick with traditional business and keep losing opportunity, this gap, or are we want to move on following the industry and not only the trends, but basically the ones who are sponsoring us, the brands who are investing in us, go into this direction. So what we are finding out is that there's a big mix of maturity level for each of the properties. But one thing it's clear, it seems, at least in the last 6 months, everyone understands that the digital component, it comes here not only to build the audience, not only to generate fun content and engagement, but also to be monetized in a proper way.
Yeah, that's great. And Esteban, from your side, from the on-field perspective, what are you seeing in terms of some of your clients in their level of maturity and in how they're trying to use this more sort of AI-driven approaches to player performance? Are you seeing a big disparity between those, the early phase of that journey and the latter stages, and how are you trying to help clubs think differently around that journey that they could go on?
Yes, what we have seen is that with the exception of some clubs like Real Madrid, that they have their own inner team that is probably best digital transformation team in the world. We have seen that more than 90% of the clubs are institution in football needs a global help in order to drive technology into their structures. So it's not only giving them the formation about the technology, but helping them to create their own team, and also giving them help, not only the solutions, but also how they can improve their performance in every solution. So this consultancy is also some things that we need to apply into most of our clients. What I think we have to say, and this is something I'm well aware that Horizm agree, is that we need to democratize. It's our responsibility to democratize this kind of technology. So I'm well aware that Pedro and Horizm can work with Real Madrid, but also can work with Marbella in Segunda B. That is the club where I'm playing right now. And this is the spirit of companies that wants to go into the next level and be leaders in the future, to have the ability to give the best solution, but to give this kind of solution to the whole industry. And this is something we also do in Olocip.
Yeah, no, that's great. Michael, going to come to you now, if I may. And obviously, the size of the club will dictate how much digital transformation can influence some of the opportunities that are out there, and obviously it impacts the requirements you need to execute this as well. So I was keen to understand from your perspective on some of the internal synergies you've been able to create using digital and innovation, and how that sort of helped you build out new concepts and business models, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the size of the club does have an impact on the approach that you take, and I mean, just to kind of echo on what Esteban and Pedro said. I mean, the great thing about digital transformation today is that it doesn't really matter how big a club you are, how big an organization you are. I mean, whether you have the capabilities of building a data science team and data engineering team inside your organization, or you can go to the market and you can find great partners like Olocip and like Horizm, where you can get access to this technology in a way that any organization can make use of it. So I mean, it is like going all the way back to the start of the conversation. I mean, it is a mindset. It's about wanting to make that change. And I mean, for us, you know, our digital transformation journey didn't start when I joined the club, and it's not going to finish under my watch. I mean, it's you know, the term digital maturity has been used, and that's a term that we use as well. And the great thing about it, and the interesting thing about it, is that that's a term that constantly evolves. There is no sort of end line. There is no finish line. It's something that you're constantly moving the goalposts, and there's constantly things that you can do to continue to improve. You know, I think some of the bigger picture things that we kind of look at is, you know, while it can sometimes be easier to get lost a little bit in the multitude of solutions that are out in the market. One of the things that is I find is always important to do is sort of look at that big picture and really understand where are those synergies between the different parts of your business. So in the sense of, you know, in the way that Horizm's been talking about, I mean, it might seem like a perfectly natural part right now to think of digital media as part of a partnerships negotiation, but once upon a time, those were two separate pieces of the business. And so looking at that synergy between the digital networks that have been developed and the ability to then monetize those and understand the value of their inventory is one example of where synergies between different parts of the business are helping companies to create a value that's not just the sum of the individual parts, but it's really greater than the sum of the individual parts. And those patterns carry across, whether it's looking at the merchandising, e-commerce, you know, ticketing businesses, looking at the synergies between those. That synergy is usually powered by this digital transformation and the sort of digital glue that sits underneath all of this. And so that's one thing that I think is sort of applicable to companies, whether they're big or small, in that respect.
Great. So I'm definitely sure we're out of time now. So sadly, that comes to the end of our session. But I think everyone listening and watching will agree it's been a fascinating discussion. It's a huge topic. It's entirely, you know, critical to the future of the industry. But from my perspective, you know, thank you to the panelists for sharing those fascinating insights and a topic we can continue to talk about for many hours, but our time is up today. So thank you from my side, and I'll pass back, David, to yourself from here.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Clive. Absolutely captivating stuff. Yeah, great to hear from well, the Real Madrid side of things. Of course, talking about some big concepts there. What's 5G going to do? AI is a catch-all term, but well, just to take one quote from what particularly Mike was saying there, it's here, it's real, it's not a buzzword, and it will have a big impact in business every day. And we're going to continue to try to be impactful here and look at how football leagues have been managing things in COVID times. We've got a pan-continental perspective here because we're talking about lots of different European leagues, and in fact, European leagues themselves will be represented in this next panel, and it's coming up in just 5 minutes' time here on Day 4 of WFS Live.